All right, the meeting will come to order. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back for our first council meeting in person in over a year. So glad to see a nice crowd here tonight. And Madam Clerk, could you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Sure. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in preparation of the council meeting notice dated May 27, 2021, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room. The city has a listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain it at the system at the dais and return it thereafter.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Just wanted to let everyone know, if you feel like you want a little more personal space, there are spaces out in the lobby, there are chairs, and the closed circuit TV should be working, so you can watch the meeting, and if you want to come in and comment, you can come in, just if anyone is interested. So with that, Madam Clerk, I'll ask you to call the roll, please.
Ms. Allen?
Here.
Ms. Hairston? Ms. Little? Mr. Naidu?
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Vartan?
Present.
President Fox?
Here. Thank you. And now I'd like to have us all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Ben Terrell, would you like to come up and lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notices regarding closed session and hearings and comments, please?
Sure. A closed session meeting as authorized by state statute was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on the City of Summit YouTube channel, Comcast Channel 36, and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HGTV, on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's office at rlicatis@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we're moving on to reports. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Council President. Just a few short remarks or announcements. Guidance from the state of New Jersey for COVID-19 protocols continues to change as restrictions are reduced. The City of Summit website at cityofsummit.org/coronavirus reports daily updates and other COVID-19 related information. The next Summit Free Market is Saturday, June 12th, and will continue on the second Saturday of each month. At this point, we're still you need to make an appointment, so sign-ups for appointments will begin on Monday, June 7th at noon. For more information, go to cityofsummit.org/Summit Free Market. At its May 26th meeting, the Union County Board of County Commissioners honored Vietnam War veterans Henry Bassman and Robert Butler with a resolution recognizing the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Congratulations to both gentlemen. We are extremely thankful for your service in Vietnam on behalf of our beloved country and for all you continue to do to contribute to our Summit community. And on a similar note, yesterday was Memorial Day. We had a Memorial Day parade, which we did not have last year. It was a joyous event, of course, very solemn as we remember those who were lost during the various wars. But there were a couple thousand people there, and people were lining the streets in Summit for the parade. It was the first sign of, in my opinion, normalcy, return to community and openness, and I just think it was really awesome that the community came together to honor our veterans, and they were anxious to do so. So certainly by far and away, the biggest Memorial Day that I've attended, and I've probably gone to a dozen. So anyway, I'm just really excited, and I think that, again, another step tonight to be moving forward and coming back together as a community and in person. So thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. It was great to see so many people. That's it. Thank you.
Mayor. Okay, and now moving on to the City Administrator's report. Michael Rogers.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Well, this morning, we reopened City Hall to the public. I guess we were open for a short period last year, but it was good to have members of the public in the building. Masks are required in all city buildings until Friday, June 4th, and after that time, vaccinated people may enter the building without masks. And then just my final item, the next free household hazardous waste event will be held on Saturday, June 5th at Union County College, which is located at 1033 Springfield Avenue in Cranford, and that will be from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Any Union County resident may participate regardless of their hometown. And that's all I have for this evening, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the Council President's comments. Our annual Summit Has Pride event is next Saturday, June 5th at 6 p.m. on the Village Green. There will be a free concert, family-friendly drag performance, and the movie Rent will be shown at dusk. Please join us in support of our LGBTQ community. The pilot program banning gas-powered leaf blowers went into effect today. It will remain in effect until August 31st, 2021. And city staff received some complaints today from citizens. It's up to each property owner to inform your landscaping companies about the ban. We do also have a voluntary sign-up if landscapers want to receive information. It's voluntary. It's on the city's website. It's really easy. It's name, address, phone number, email kind of stuff, and it just will allow them to receive emails. The Department of Community Services will begin issuing informal warnings when noncompliance is observed, and please do not call 911 to report gas-powered leaf blower use. Finally, this meeting is in person, and we're happy to make the return to City Hall. Remote meetings allowed us to sustain government operations over the course of the pandemic. But for the time being, our technology does not allow us to do receive remote comments. We have asked our Technology Advisory Committee to look into, to make recommendations for how we could integrate that into our meeting and while still preserving the ability to watch on Hometown TV as well as YouTube. So they'll be making recommendations to council, and we'll be reporting back on that. While mask use is, I guess, optional for those who are vaccinated starting June 4th, for the time being with council meetings, I would ask that folks still wear masks just so everyone feels comfortable in this setting. So that's all I have on that. And now we will move on to public comments. So if any, at this point in the meeting, members of the public have an opportunity to comment on any matter that's not on the agenda. And if you want to come up, just come up and we'll recognize you. And if you state your name and your address. And the clerk will be keeping a timer. And if you have a written comment, please send it to the clerk at rlibbies@cityofsummit.org.
Council President, whenever you're ready, I have one email that was received.
Should we take the live ones first?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Come on up.
Okay. Do you want to do the email first? Or do you want me to do my comment first?
No,
You go ahead.
Okay. I do have a question before my comment.
Could you state your name and
Oh,
address,
sure, I'm
please?
sorry about that. Rachel Kramer,
Okay.
88 Elm Street. Do you want me to leave this on?
You can take it off if you want
Okay.
for just while you're speaking.
Okay,
It
perfect.
makes it
Thank
easier
you.
for people to hear.
I do have a quick question. You said you received some complaints today about the noise from gas leaf blowers.
Mm-hmm.
Were the residents that were complaining able to verify whether it was gas or electric or an edge cutter or a lawnmower? And I asked that only because my landscaper came today also, and I told him don't worry about blowing anything. But as soon as he started mowing the lawn and using the edge cutters, I could not tell a difference at all. I was just looking out the window. So I think that if you're going to receive complaints, just to make sure that it is a gas leaf blower.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I don't have data on that. Mr. Schrager, do you know what the substance of the complaints were today?
Not specifically, Council President. There were some that were actually battery blowers that we responded to. But
Okay.
with the pending rain this week and the loss of the day yesterday, was quite active with leaf blowers today in the city. So they were kind of running a little bit all over.
So the complaints were about gas and battery powered?
They were about leaf blowers. Some people were not able to identify the difference when we showed up. Some of us was just we were being proactive today. For some we showed up and they were batteries.
At this point, it's educational.
Okay.
We're not trying to smack anyone, we're just making sure people know.
Fair enough. Okay, Rachel Kramer, 88 Elm Street. I guess you can start the clock now. I want to thank you for looking into ways of making hybrid meetings possible. I think that this is going to go a long way to help increase engagement, participation in local government for those who cannot physically show up to meetings. I'm glad that no legislation will need to change in order to do this, and I look forward to hearing progress. I do hope that emails will continue to be accepted, read aloud, and entered into the public record. As you mentioned, today an ordinance went into effect that seemed to really have the community split. When it was introduced 10 weeks ago, it took a lot of Summit by surprise. While 4-6 was the first opportunity for the public to make remarks on the record in regard to the ban, it seemed as though this decision to pass was already made. I had conversations with members of council who confirmed their decisions to me prior to public comment, despite my asking if there was any possibility of a vote being postponed, since there was a lot more people who wanted to be involved. In an exchange between the SEC and council, there was even mention of Princeton's slow rollout, comprehensive education process, and effort to subsidize the cost of the equipment through grants. And several of these same suggestions were also proposed by those who are against the ban before and during the 4-6 public comment period. Summit could have and should have opted for a more conservative, less restrictive approach for the summer of 2021. There is no doubt in my mind that this started from a place of wanting a quieter and cleaner Summit. In fact, some of the people most vocal with their opposition to this ban already own electric lawn equipment and are in favor of restrictions of some kind in the future. At any point after its initial introduction, council could have taken a step back to reevaluate. It's okay to say things are a work in progress and to keep iterating, and it's okay to admit when you're wrong. But it seems like the council feels that everything about this, from start to finish, was entirely above board, despite the fact that conversations taking place over the course of the 18-month period represented one point of view only, and the ad hoc committee was admittedly unrepresentative of the community. I've read the opera reports, I've attended the meetings, I've spoken to some members of council, and the fact is they moved forward without the same consideration from the people who oppose the ban as was given to the few residents who were in touch with council over an 18-month period. Please do not conflate facts with attacks and try to dismiss the frustrations of multiple residents because they oppose a ban on gas leaf blowers and the way in which they were banned. No one on this council dismissed a distraught resident in the middle of a pandemic when they complained about the noise from a gas leaf blower. No one told them that there were more important things to worry about as this entire country was locked down. Being vocally opposed to an issue is not being vitriolic. Open public records are not attacks. Personal takeaways are not assertions of facts, and passing a ban that was divisive is not on the shoulders of the people who oppose it. We agree we all have a responsibility to speak out and defend the truth, and I encourage those who've not yet read the 300-page Oprah request to do so and come to their own conclusions.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Kramer. Are there any other comments?
Are those prepared?
Oh, can you provide those comments, please?
You can email to me
You can
if you'd
email
like.
them. Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, city administration. Thank you for your time tonight. Looks like Chief Bartolotti is not here, so we will direct stuff to you.
Can
You're the
you
lucky
state your
man.
name and address, please?
Delia Hamlet, 11 Brantwood.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So I guess since Chief isn't here, I have two or three quick things that I just want to follow up, and we can figure it out later. But I think we need to look at who decides what is put on Facebook for police criminal events and what is put on Nixle, and what criteria is involved in doing so. I certainly agree we have more viewers on Facebook. However, for major incidents like abductions or criminal activity, it seems that having more information coming as a text is more efficient. For instance, we're just all not checking Facebook all the time. So for really important things, I think we should look into what is going on Nixle, what's the criteria, who's putting that stuff on, and sort of coming up with a process for that. And also, I was wondering if we could look into the number of Nixle subscribers, because if we don't have a lot, then that's a major
Ms.
problem
Hamlet,
as well.
You should address the council and then
Oh,
we'll
sure.
call on whoever can answer the
Okay,
questions,
well,
okay?
it was for the police,
Yes, I
but.
understand.
Secondly, Fernwood Road has achieved a 90% rate on the neighborhood watch, which is great. We have all the residents engaged. We'd like to request that the police blotter is disseminated more than once a month, so I'm not sure if that's possible. We're thankful that Chief Bartolotti and the city administration has met with our representatives from Fernwood Road. Fernwood and Brantwood intersect, just so you know, I used to live on Fernwood. I don't anymore. And we feel like we're making a lot of progress. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, and so we're excited about that, so thank you. Ms. Fox, thank you for looking into the hybrid meeting. I know there are many challenges with accomplishing this. I was wondering if it would be possible to have an informal community meeting virtually so that once a month residents have more of a platform to ask questions and get updated on votes that might be coming up. Councilman Nadeau, I think you mentioned that you used to do types of things like this, so I would ask that maybe we could engage in that type of environment again. I think one thing I struggle with is that we get the agenda a few days before the meeting, but there really isn't adequate enough time for the community to be involved in ordinances or resolutions. If you look, we're just not really sure what we're all voting on, and clearly there's a packed house tonight, and we all want to be involved. And with that being said, as I mentioned, we only have 5 rows here in City Hall, and it's completely packed, so we either have to figure out something or move these meetings somewhere else, because we simply can't accommodate any more seats.
There are more seats out in the lobby, Ms.
Okay.
Hamlet, with a TV and the ability to come in and
Perfect.
comment, so.
That's
we-
great.
We have made provisions.
Okay. And then one of the last things I wanted to mention is, it doesn't have to be tonight, but I think we need to look into how we determine who is on an ad hoc committee and whether or not updates are provided to the public. The last 2 comments regarding the opportunity for residents to meet once a month for issues that require more interaction, and also it would provide more of a structure and format for the selection of ad hoc committees, would potentially eliminate some of the recent headaches that residents and council are experiencing. Finally, something I don't know if anybody's ever brought up, I'm not sure if Mr. Schrager would want to take this on, but a lot of us on the north side below Ridge have really horrible cell phone connection. We've tried multiple carriers for cell phones. Most of us are on Wi-Fi through calling. I speak to half the people in town, and I'm not sure how we accomplish that. I've personally spent thousands of dollars having tech people evaluate my home. This was not an issue when I lived on Fernwood, but below Ridge, Bedaux, Oxbow, it's a massive problem. So I'd ask that we could, maybe there's nothing we can do, but if somebody could look into that, that'd be great. But again, I appreciate all your efforts, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hamlet. So on some of these things, Nixle, we do have criteria
Yeah,
for what
yeah.
goes on Nixle. Would you like to talk about that, Madam Mayor?
I would love to tell you that I know exactly that criteria, but I do not. But
Okay.
I know that there is protocol and that Chief Bartolotti absolutely has a list, a strict list of what goes out on Nixle and what is put on Facebook. Obviously, he's more concerned. One of the bigger concerns about putting too much on Nixle is that it becomes white noise sometimes, and that's not just, I'm not just making this up. I mean, you put too much out all the time, and people just start to ignore it, and we really don't want that to be the case, and that's why we don't use Swift Reach Alert unless it's really serious, and I don't make those phone calls to every household unless we're talking about a serious storm or something like that, because I don't want somebody to say, oh, God, here's the mayor again, God, who cares? That's not the point. So he does have a strict protocol. I will mention it to him, and we can get back to you.
And the police blotter, I believe there was a discussion about it. Do you know, Captain Zagorski?
Twice a month.
It's going to be twice a month? Okay, right. All right, great. As far as...
And can I just say that I think part of the reason is that the editor of the online papers, where the online news, they don't want to put it out more than twice a month. So the blotter is going to go out twice a month, which is more than it goes now.
Right. And as far as having a committee, we, having a meeting virtually once a month, that's something we'd have to discuss, because obviously that's a change in council protocol. And if we have a meeting with the whole council, then we need to have, the clerk here, and it's an official meeting.
If I could add something.
Yes.
All these virtual meetings took place as the executive order. It was a declared emergency because of the pandemic. And as we can see, the masks are being lifted June 4th. You're not going to be able to have virtual meetings, without an executive order or some change in the law. The whole purpose of the Open Public Meeting Act is meetings take place in the public, in a public forum, as they've done for hundreds of years. So that was an exception. The only reason they made the exception was if you couldn't have virtual meetings, government would have shut down.
Right.
Vendors wouldn't have gotten paid, roads wouldn't have gotten paved, it would have been a disaster. So the Department of Community Affairs passed the local finance notice and basically emergency guidance on how to conduct it. And if you looked at what the guidance said is that the meetings should have been limited to topics of essential business. And so, that's why no one realized it was going to go on for as long as it did. People thought it was going to be for, 6 weeks. But right now, as the law stands, it takes place in public. You can't, without some type of legislative order or executive order from the governor, you're not going to be able to, once the executive order and the emergency due to the pandemic is lifted.
Thank you. But one thing, Ms. Hamlet, that I can tell you is the agendas always come out the Friday before the meeting. I always write a council president preview, which explains, gives context, explains what's going on. And you can always feel free to call a council member, to send an email, to call the mayor. We're all available to talk about things. We're not trying to hide anything. And, we do offer the opportunity to, for comment, obviously, before we vote. For those of you who think that it's a problem that we've spoken to people in advance of making a decision and voting, that's our job. There is no such thing as an ex parte communication when you're dealing with council. Our job is to talk to residents, to engage with residents, to understand what the concerns of the residents are and to address those. So it's part of our job to talk to people when we're formulating legislation, and we've done that. And we will continue to do that, and if you have a concern, talk to us. But I think that's really the mechanism for this outside of council meetings. And cell phone connections, I'm at a loss. I don't know that there's anyone who can fix the cell phone problems here in town. Mr. Schrager, do you know anything else?
No, we could reach out to our contact.
Yeah.
And see. I wasn't aware there's a dead zone there, so I'll
Okay.
get the exact area and we'll start there.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments from members of the public?
I have the one for reading.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Yeah, come on
I
up.
didn't realize.
No, come on up.
I didn't realize anyone was coming up.
Yep.
Okay, Dory Gagnon, 27 Bedford Road. First, I want to say thank you for coming in person. This is nice to see everybody back. Real quickly, the lights at Deforest used to be blinking, I think 11:30 or something till 5. And when you did the remodeling in town, they no longer blink. Is there any way to get them back so they're blinking? Because when I go to the train in the morning, I have to do a detour now and wait at the light. So they're not in sync with the other lights that are blinking. So that's something I don't know who to ask, but since I'm up here, I thought I'd ask that question because they used to all be blinking in town, and those Deforest lights do not blink anymore.
Okay.
They don't blink yellow. So
Is
that's
that your only question, or
nope.
do you have others?
I have one other question.
Okay, so why don't we do
So-
that, and then I'll ask Mr. Schrager
Yeah,
to come
and then,
up and talk.
my opposition as well to the gas leaf blowers. I think, after reading the OBRA request and seeing how Princeton was gonna roll out their model, I really applaud them, and I think that going forward to the next year, and seeing how this pilot plays out, I think we need to get the landscapers involved, but a lot of them don't speak English. And so on my walk today, I saw a lot of them using the gas power blowers still. And so trying to educate them on my walk, they're no longer able to use them. I couldn't communicate because my Spanish isn't great. So I think that as a town, we need to get them engaged and involved. So maybe going back to Princeton and seeing how they're doing it, and getting some flyers out and talking to the public, but the public's not on Facebook. I have parents who are in their 80s. They still use a flip phone. So I think we need to get the public more engaged, and I like having more community involvement, somehow saying, this is what's happening in the public. Sometimes they read their mail, sometimes they don't. Maybe that's more of a feedback to say, people who are elderly, who are in their 80s, they're not aware of these bans and these protocols and these things happening in town, to get them engaged, to let their landscapers know or let whoever know. So I think these are things to implement and get the community more involved is just a suggestion. and to get people like us who are a little upset about the ban moving forward, since this is just a pilot, so maybe it's not going to get passed next year, and see how, you know, whatever measurement you're going to use, because I guess we're also a little unclear as to what measurements were going to be used to address this pilot. So maybe things can be cleared up about that as well. But that's all I have to say, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gagnon. Mr. Schrager, would you like to come up and talk about Deforest Lights, please?
Through you, Council President. The Deforest Lights were replaced approximately, I think, 6 years ago, and they do use a new modern technology, so they have the camera detection system. So in theory, in those off hours, a car pulling up should register at the signal, which should start the cycle. So you shouldn't have to wait that long. So that's it. I'll follow up and just make sure that those signals are operating the way they're supposed to. The older signals in town, I think there's 7 or 8 that do blink from 11 to 6 a.m. is because they wouldn't have that technology, so you could feasibly sit there for 2 minutes at a clip. So they switched to blinking. So that is why that happens, but it should be working that you shouldn't have to wait. It should almost be, I don't want to say instant, but it should be relatively quickly.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for clarifying that. So, and in answer to the gas leaf blower, I appreciate your comments on, you know, we'll take a look again at what Princeton's doing, you know. Our communications office does have, does reach out beyond social media. You know, we have a communications officer who has a list of press outlets, and she reaches out and she has a lot of different contacts. So there are other ways that information is getting out there, but it is always a challenge. So I appreciate your comments on that. And, you know, and that's also the reason for the registration, to, you know, to let landscapers know about registration. And the information on our website is in English, but can be translated to Spanish as well. So, you know, so there is information available, just you push the button and it translates to Spanish. I hope that answers those questions. Is there
Well, and just that you after the pilot, there will be a lot of conversation and discussion through
Absolutely.
committee about how it was run, and their decision is yet to be made about what you're going to do for next year.
Absolutely. Yep. Mr. Schrager.
If I can just offer, our code inspector is fluent in Spanish, and the forms we're giving out are bilingual.
Great.
So we are reaching out as best we can to English and Spanish speaking community.
Perfect, thank you. That's a great clarification. All right, are there any other members of the public who have comments? Come on up.
How you doing?
Hi.
I'm Luis Ramirez, 485 Springfield Avenue. I just have a couple questions and concerns about the leaf blower ban.
Sure.
One, you said that it's educational. How long until it's educational, until you start, you know, finding?
I think the first notice is an educational warning,
Okay.
and then the second one is a fine.
Now, do we know that local suppliers can supply landscapers with these blowers?
I believe
Because
that,
my understanding, it's very difficult to get them. So if I get, for example, if I'm going to a property every week, first week I get the notice, I go and order the blower, it's not going to be here for 3 weeks. What am I doing for those other 2 weeks? And then what if I get another notice?
if you are really unable to find a blower, I think they are still available. I've been told by people who've been looking for them, but if there's an
Yeah.
issue.
I mean, no, I beg to, I mean, I guess it's maybe looking at the
I guess
the
it's-
quality and the commercial grade. Because I guess, you know, a Home Depot one doesn't fit a commercial grade person like myself, contractor. It wouldn't last me as long. Now, if there's any, because you said this is what is it? We're still testing it out?
It's a pilot,
Pilot,
yes.
correct? So, for example, if I make this investment in this equipment and you decide not to go further with it, how do I get an reimbursement for that equipment that is no longer needed?
Right, well, you know, it is still equipment that you can use, and it's, you know, there are certain applications that it's useful for, but there is no way to be reimbursed if we don't go ahead with it.
Okay,
But-
so how do we make sure that if a landscaper isn't able to supply that because of local suppliers can't commit to it? Because a local supplier, I just went today, he's out already.
Okay, so
The
if-
shelves are empty.
So-
Chatham lawnmowers are
that's
empty
where
right
the
now.
exemption,
Yeah.
the
So there's a
hardship.
so there's a hardship exemption, and it's online, the form, or you can talk to Aaron after the meeting and get it from him. So there's a way of applying. You can list out what the hardship is, what you have attempted to try to you know, who you've contacted, how you've tried to rectify it, and what the time frame is for getting equipment.
Okay, so now
So-
let's say we're in the same house, same scenario, on the same street, 3 different owners, 3 different officers. Those are 3 different warnings, correct? How do we distinguish that?
I'm sorry, 3 different officers?
Let's say you get pulled over, or 3 people come up to you with the warning, because I'm in Summit, and I could be doing, let's say, 50 houses in Summit.
It's specific to you, not specific to the house. It's specific to your business.
You'd get one.
You get one.
You don't
You
get
get
one per
one, even if
house.
there's multiple routes running at the same time, if a company has multiple vehicles out at the same time in Summit,
I see what you're saying,
it's
not
only
just,
one for that company?
I believe so.
Are you finding the employees?
We're not
No,
finding the
not the
employees.
employees,
No, so
the
it-
business.
Yeah. So it's,
So what I just mentioned, how do you go by
So
that?
the way that it should work is the fact that your different employees are going to get different citations, right, at different places. Because you're saying, I could have an employee on Fernwood, I could have an employee on Springfield Avenue, I could have an employee on West End, right?
Correct.
3 different trucks, 3 different locations, they're all using gas-powered leaf blowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all using on the same day. It so happens that there's 3 different officers or inspectors who go and are able to get. So the first time everyone gets it, that's just an informative kind of citation saying, hey, look, you have an issue, you should address it. Now, presuming that you haven't sought a hardship exemption. If you've sought a hardship exemption and you've been granted a hardship exemption, then you're going to be exempt from it. So even if you were to get one of your employees would come back and say, hey, look, I got this citation because the officer or whoever didn't know I had a hardship exemption, then you come back, it's already in the system that you have a hardship exemption, so you're going to be okay. But let's assume that you don't have a hardship exemption. The second time, regardless of which employee it is, where it is, you as a company are on notice then, after the first round of getting it, that you have an issue because you have not done anything to correct it. The opportunity is available to people to try to address it beforehand by saying, okay, I know that I'm not going to be able to either get the equipment because, as you say, the supplier doesn't have the commercial grade equipment. And we understand that. I understand you're not going to Home Depot because, like, for instance, the city goes to Chatham. There's a dealer in Chatham, right?
Mhm, yeah.
And there's a reason for going there because you guys want to be able to get a warranty. It's a bigger type of equipment. It's longer. You have different needs than simply a home. So we get that, but that's the reason for putting in a request and saying, here's the request. Here's what I've tried to do. Here's who I've contacted at Chatham or wherever it is. They've told me I can't get it for the next 3 weeks, so give me an exemption for the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
And to your point about the future, I think part of the issue is to try to figure out, okay, what are the metrics? And I understand everybody saying, tell me beforehand what the metrics are. Part of it, the metrics, is what we're hearing right now. This is feedback. This is part of how we're evaluating how it's doable or not doable. That's why it's a pilot program that sunsets at August 31st. We have to affirmatively, some council has to affirmatively decide to do it. But what you guys are thinking about is your investment and whether you want to make
Yeah,
investment in
because these
equipment.
blowers
I
aren't
understand-
cheap. You're talking about a $600 one
Yeah,
blower.
yeah.
And I need
And
at
which
least
I
supply
think-
one route with 3
know
of
what,
those.
Let me just finish.
That's-
So I understand what you're saying about the investment, but that's exactly the reason why I think there'll be, afterwards, there'll be a group of people who will say, hey, listen, now I've invested. I need you to do this.
Mhm.
Ultimately, I think we all agree, and I think we had some of the speakers speak about the fact that they may have disagreed with the process. They may not think it's where we've ended up, the process-wise. But I think most people see where it's headed. The 2-stroke blower is, from a health perspective, is not a good thing, and that's just out there. One could not dispute the science about that. What one can say is, look, where are we headed as a society about this? This is my perspective. People can agree, disagree, but I've looked at this, people have looked at this. And the question then is, where are we headed? And if you guys are making investments, I think it's right for you to expect that long-term, that we make sure that you can use your investment. We don't want to make it so that you make an investment in something and then we say, okay, we pull the rug from you. That doesn't make sense. right?
Yeah, well, I guess it's fair to educate all around. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm assuming if this is the protocol, I mean, it's fair to tell residents to be like, just expect most landscapers are gonna up their prices because it's double the work, it's double the time. Now I gotta make time to go charge this equipment. Now I gotta make time to, how am I charging this
So we
equipment? How am I
talked to the-
safely going
right,
to
right.
charge this equipment so I don't cause a fire in my trailer or in my vehicle or in front of someone's house?
Right.
You know what I
we-
mean?
we-
So
we-
how do I safely operate this
No,
equipment?
so we talked to landscapers who are using electric blowers. We talked to the folks in Maplewood who had experience with landscapers having to use it. And what the data was back from them is that they didn't necessarily need to up their prices. Now, it may be different in Summit, it may be different in Maplewood. Every community is different. I'm not saying that is part of the process of evaluating how successful or unsuccessful this attempt was. The only way to tell is afterwards get that data. We will solicit information from landscapers, we will solicit information from the community, and we will evaluate that once we have it to determine whether or not, again, whether this should be done in the future. But that's part of what you're saying has to be part of the calculus to whether this was a feasible project or not.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, so I think, I guess I urge that you guys elongate or expand this educational period until you really make sure everyone is educated and well-known on the process. As the lady mentioned, there's a miscommunication issue, there's a language barrier, so we need to make sure that we're doing this and bringing out this information.
We always have thought of this, not as a punitive effort, right? Because the idea is not to punish people in this endeavor, because that doesn't achieve anything, because all you're going to get a whole bunch of angry people are associated, more angry than they are now, I guess. But what I will say is the idea is to try to get people to understand what we are doing, why it's being done, and as you say, educate it. It's not intended to go punish the landscapers or punish individual homeowners, but rather to get to a place where people, there is a group of people, what we're not hearing from, and what we did hear from, whether the people who are opposed to, what we're doing, what we're not hearing from, but we certainly got plenty of emails and communications from people who are also residents of the city, also people who have rights to have what they believe is a quiet enjoyment of their property, right? Now you can say, well, it's not a big deal, whatever it is, people make arguments about it, but the fact of the matter is they are as entitled to have their voices heard on council. And what we try to achieve, and maybe people will disagree with where we draw a line, but this is what we do all the time with every single regulation, is to try to draw lines. We drew a line as a pilot program to see what could be or could not be done, and how feasible or not feasible it is.
Okay, my next question is, if, I guess, if a homeowner calls, says the landscaper's using a blower, but the officer gets there, he's not physically using the blower, is he going to get cited for that? How can you know if he was using a lawnmower or a weed whacker?
I think we have to turn that over to Mr. Schrager to answer the enforcement.
I think, my opinion, I think the officer physically have to see the man doing the crime. He can't go by what somebody else tells
I'm
him.
pretty sure that's.
That's what I would
so.
assume should be the case.
Could you
but-
confirm that, Mr. Schrager?
Yeah, can I just sit here?
Yeah, sit there, yeah. Good idea. Does that mic work?
I think so.
Okay.
So there's dual enforcement. It is the community services and the police. And because of that, there's two parts to it. One is the community enforcement person could be there at 8 a.m. and get the same person the police get the same person at 9 a.m. So any citations will be by mail later on in the week when we can compare to make sure some people don't have waivers, or some people might have gotten it twice, or it could have been the same company got 5 in one day. But it has to be witnessed by a city employee. We're not going to take phone calls or photographs because we need to witness it. If we do get those calls, we will leave a door hanger that just says, FYI, there is a ban in place temporarily, just so they know. But there won't be. That does not count as a formal warning, or a citation won't be issued.
Okay, that answers that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have a comment?
Is it still open?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Come on up.
My name is David Fosgate. I live at 32 Laurel Avenue. I wasn't even going to make a comment during this section, but it struck me that what is happening here is we are experimenting with your livelihood. And I think that's really regrettable. That you'd have to go buy equipment.
Excuse me,
Sir, you gotta
you're-
drop the-
Sorry.
you have to talk
Apologize,
to the
sir.
council.
That we would make these hardworking people go out and buy equipment at their expense that they may or may not need. That really struck a chord with me just now. To his point, to have more fully thought this out and vetted this out, I don't know if it could or could not have been done, but I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Fosgate. When we vetted this process, we did speak to landscapers who told us that it was, in fact, the landscaper who is based in Maplewood, I believe, told the members of council that they don't purchase leaf blower equipment. They do this using their existing equipment. And the reason we chose the summer was for exactly this reason. I mean, we're obviously not going to tell landscapers how to do their business, but we have been told that it is doable without existing equipment. And Councilmember Naidu was part of that conversation, so I'm going to let him,
Yeah, I
if
mean,
he has anything
think,
to add.
I think one can always argue the point that any type of regulation has a financial impact on the regulated community. That goes without saying. So the question then is the issue that the equipment is necessary at this point in time during the summer months? We were told by the landscapers, and I know that this issue of the Landscapers Association's letter has come up and it's going to be read. I will point out that regardless of the clarification, the underlying message in that letter was this was a reasonable solution to the issue. That was the language that they used. Now, you could disagree. They may have not polled their members. They may not have asked their members. That is not, it's not for us who receive communication to find out whether a trade association has done its job or not. That's their issue. That's not our issue. But what I will say is that what we are looking at is a 3-month pilot during the period of time that we were told by landscapers is the least impactful to their business, because it is just the simple fact, the reality that most of us understand, I think, that in the fall and in the spring you have cleanups that use intensively blowers, and yes, you could use blowers during the summertime, but it is not at the level that you would use it in the fall and the spring. So all I can tell you is we did get guidance, we looked at it, we were balancing the interests of the people also who were asking that we do something. And so the question is, do we simply ignore all of those people and say, we don't care that you're asking us to do something? They're residents too, they're taxpayers too. Do they get no say in the process? So do we just simply ignore them? We're trying to balance. This is never easy up here, because usually you have people you know. It's not as if these are strangers. We all live in a small community. We know each other. It's not a whole bunch of strangers here. And people get passionate about issues around here. And we get that many people have a lot of good ideas about how we should do things. And we always are trying to draw lines. It's never going to be a perfect line drawing.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidu. Does anyone else have any comments from the public? Come on up.
Good evening. I'm Ryan Felmet, 57 Madison Ave. Great to see you all tonight in person. I just had a question, and I think I already know the answer. Can someone reapproach and have a second public comment if as a matter of the proceedings of a meeting? Not me personally, right now.
Yes, generally, the answer is no.
Or tonight,
Can have
For
one
our
time.
inaugural first, and I think some people, or at
No,
least one person
generally,
wanted
the
to
rule
ask.
is
them.
one per customer.
Okay, it was just an administrative question.
I mean, when we get to the resolutions and the ordinances, if you have
There'll be other
comments on
times to
those,
talk, right?
that's a freebie, but,
You utilize that time, perfect.
no, not to talk about something other than what's being
I
discussed.
know,
Okay.
I hear you. No, but I just wanted to start off by saying, in regards to Memorial Day, what the mayor said, I completely agree with what a success it was in terms of bringing the community together for the first time in person. And to me, it felt like the first time in a very long time that we were all able to get together. And I think from that physical kind of interaction, outside of small pockets of people that may hang out and have had the ability to, I think it's going to lead to a lot more productivity in a lot of ways, and just entertainment and fun. And I think getting out of the pandemic and transitioning out, I think is going to have a lot of benefits on us as a community, for sure. And along those lines, and I had a brief discussion with Council President Fox this afternoon. I think that it opens the opportunity to, I mean, we had it before, I've mentioned it to the mayor, and I think someone else mentioned something along these lines, proactive discussions with the community, I think. And I know there's been council on the road, I hear all the stuff that's going on, and I think that's great. What I'm saying is I think there's more opportunity to proactively reach into the residents of Summit and see how they feel about things. And I know you guys all have your own views. The residents have theirs as well. But I think that through various initiatives, we briefly discussed a couple, and we can look at it further. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that as well. So I'm looking forward to hopefully going down that road. On hybrid meetings, I wasn't going to say much except for thank you for looking into them until I heard Mr. Giacobbe make a comment about it's the exception. We have to change the law. We've heard this 3 times now, and it's legitimately confusing me. I might be missing something. I understand that there was not hybrid meetings before the pandemic. I understand that we had to have them as a result of the pandemic. I also understand that there's other councils, there's other municipalities that have hybrid meetings, and they plan to do them for the foreseeable future. They're not ending them soon. I've spoken to them directly. I've emailed this council and relayed those communications. I'd be happy to hook you up with talking to them specifically. So I don't know what part of the state law you're reading that other municipalities aren't, and I don't want to discount that, but the communication around hybrid meetings is extremely confusing. It sounds like we want to do it, and we're asking our technology teams to look at it. So I would really appreciate some more clarity as a whole on if that's where we're going, if we're really going there, or if we're just saying there's a roadblock from a technology standpoint, or if there's a legal matter, because, again, I don't see the legal issue. It's not what I've been told.
Your 3 minutes is up. Do you want to just wrap up?
Yeah, let me just say
Okay.
2 more quick things.
Very quick, please.
Okay, Deforest Ave and the gate, I know that's coming up later, and the gates, and then the 2 streets a week program in terms of monitoring for speed. I was just wondering if there was an update on metrics related to that or anything else in the works around vehicle and pedestrian safety. And then on the gas leaf blowers, from previous comments, I just wrote this down while people were talking. So homeowners are, just to clarify, homeowners are responsible for notifying their landscapers. I just want to clarify that.
That's correct.
And, but the landscapers are the ones that are going to face the fines and the warnings.
Correct.
So there's no burden on the homeowner except for telling their landscaper, but the actual financial part is on the landscaper.
Okay, you know what, I'm going to have to stop
Let-
you. You're
okay.
almost a minute over now.
Last thing was just, is there a financial hardship as part of the exemption?
There is a hardship exemption that they can apply for, and we take it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
An answer to your questions about the virtual versus hybrid meeting, what I think, I will let our attorney speak on that topic, but I think with the confusion is virtual meeting is what we had before when we were all on Zoom together.
Understood.
Hybrid is we're here, but people want to call in. So there will not be virtual meetings legally anymore once the governor lifts the emergency order, correct?
That is
Mr.
correct.
Jacoby. But a hybrid meeting is still an option in the sense of allowing
If
someone to call
If
in.
you're here
Yes.
publicly, and people can come here publicly, and you chose to have people participate hybrid, but you're still having a public meeting,
Yes.
that might be permitted.
Yes. So
Thank you.
the communities
clears
that
that
are
up.
doing it, though, just so you understand, I mean, I know that you called our attention to Bayonne. We looked into that. Bayonne, you make a reservation to speak. And there are only a limited number of reservations. Once the reservations fill up, you don't get to speak. We don't make anyone make a reservation here. Anyone who wants to come to speak can speak. So, I mean, they also operate their meetings very differently from ours, as
Right.
does, we looked at a few other communities. And right now, our technology does not allow for it, because people who call in you would not be able to hear them if you watched them on Hometown TV or on YouTube. And that's an incomplete, for the convenience of a few people, we would inconvenience all the people at home, of which there are many who watch on either YouTube or Hometown TV. So we're looking into this. The Technology Advisory Committee is going to make recommendations on how to make all the pieces work together, and we will report back, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And I think that answers the two streets metrics. Do we have anything on that, Captain Zagorski? You don't? Okay. There was actually a post on social media that showed March versus April stats. If you look at the police department social media accounts, you can see it.
Yeah, I think stops were up a lot, yeah.
Yeah, they were. Okay. I think there was someone else who wanted to comment.
Hello, Miriam Zahn, 65 Woodland. I also didn't plan to speak, so hopefully my thoughts are clear here, but something that Councilmember Naidu said just struck me, and until I heard that and put it together with what the gentleman here said before, it didn't really occur to me that this might not actually be a pilot. Now it actually sounds more like something that's kind of decided. Well, you said, well, what we're hoping is that once you make the investment that you're going to want to stay with the leaf blowers. And I guess that sort of does drive people in that direction. So it sounds like maybe a trial period, but less of a pilot. That's just my observation, kind of what I heard. But the other question, so I do have a question related to noise ordinance, because I think this started with noise. I know it moved to environmental stuff, but it started with noise. What about, is the city cracking down on other noise? We're sort of in that season where, at 5 a.m., the recycling trucks rolling in. I had an apartment building behind my old house. Every week, we had early morning wake-ups, dogs waking up, construction vehicles. Are we also cracking down on that? And that's just, a general question if we are looking at noise, overall noise, because it's not only leaf blowers that make noise, right? Or gas, or lawnmowers, or whatever.
Thank you, Ms. Zahn. As far as, this is a pilot, it's a 3-month, it sunsets August 31st. If we want to continue it, we have to go through a process, and it will be, once again, a public process. We will evaluate what's happened, how it's gone, and then we'll make a determination with input from the community, with input from landscapers, with input from our professionals.
And if you were hearing me saying there is no way to do this after August 31st unless it's affirmatively done. So it is not as if this is, a trial period and then it automatically kicks in or anything. There's no mechanism. It's designed specifically that way because it was always intended to see how the community would, and it's not, as someone may say, we're not trying to experiment with people's businesses. What we're saying is this is a limited period of time where we got input that said this would have the least impact on the businesses that could be affected or individuals that could be affected in order to give some degree of benefit to another portion of our community that wants to have, as you just said, you were giving other examples of noise, but clearly there are other people who are impacted by this. And it was also done, we have to also remember the context, right? There's lots of people, when we started this process, who were working completely from home. They had no option. They weren't going to be able, because their offices were closed, and therefore they needed to do their work, including calls, and meetings and all of those things. And those were the people that were reaching out to us and saying, hey, listen, I'm trying to do this. I need to be at home, and this has an impact on my, not only how I live, not just the quality of life, but also my financial life and the impact to them. And we have to take all of that into consideration. This is not going to be an easy decision. It's just not. And we understand that people may think that we had a predetermined. If people look at it fairly, you will see that the request came into us from when I joined council in 2016. Probably the first one that I got forwarded was in 2017 or 2018, and we're sitting here in 2021, right? So it wasn't as if we said, oh, okay, well, some group of people wanted it. It was that the circumstances that we were living in during the pandemic also caused a heightened sensitivity by members of the public who otherwise weren't that engaged in the subject, to be honest, but became engaged because of their own condition. And again, we're trying to balance all of those different needs out. And people can disagree, as I said, where we drew the line, but we were trying to make sure that everybody was somewhat treated fairly here.
I appreciate that. Can I ask one just follow-up question? I mean, I personally own an electric leaf blower and an electric lawnmower. That's personal, but then obviously I'm just listening to the feedback from business people in the room. Was there any consideration given, and this probably going to sound crazy, but to the city purchasing these electric blowers and then having certain landscapers sign up to be part of the pilot program, so that then you can ask them for feedback? How did it go? How much longer are you getting your work done in just the same amount of time? Because that would have been...
We actually did do that. We did our own pilot before we did anything else. We purchased leaf blowers to use in-house. Our public works folks used them and tried them out, and we determined sort of how they performed. We have, on our own properties.
Okay.
So our public works folks were the guinea pigs for this. We didn't do it before we asked them to try it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, we have one letter, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
This email comes from Anna Fredette of Morris Avenue. She says, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to continue to write in and stay involved in meetings when circumstances do not allow us to attend. My comment today is in regards to the highly controversial gas-powered leaf blower ban. I would like to formally introduce a petition to overturn this ordinance. I and 309 other Summit residents and affected businesses are in agreement that this ban's negative impacts far outweigh the benefits. We respectfully ask that this issue is tabled until 2022 and decided on with more input from those directly impacted. This ordinance was passed without notifying the public and those most impacted. The process has not been transparent, and the recently reviewed OPA requests show that this was a rushed decision. Several cited the NJLCA's letter as reason for passing this, and now that we have a clarified view from them directly, this should be taken into consideration. For all these reasons and more, we ask that you do not take this petition lightly and plead with you to save your residents and businesses undue hardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We received, members of council received this letter. Unfortunately, the link was just to a blank survey and a screenshot that said 309 people had signed. We have not actually seen this petition. When we see it, we'll take a look at it and take it under consideration as we evaluate this program. It's not accurate to say that this was passed without notice to the public. We went through the same notice process that we do for every ordinance, and prior to that, if you had attended or watched council meetings, Councilmember Little at many meetings talked about where we were in the process, and we started this discussion in March of 2020 when people started requesting, as we were all staying at home and we weren't able to do anything about it, but by the summer of 2020, we formed a committee, and Councilmember Little updated people publicly at council meetings about where we were in the process. So this, for those of you who followed council meetings, this should come as no surprise. But we also did follow the proper notice process for the passage of an ordinance, and we took more public comment on this ordinance than probably any other ordinance in the history of the city of Summit, if I had to guess. As far as the New Jersey Landscape Contractors Association letter, it was not the reason we passed this ordinance, but we received it actually very late in the game, but they applauded us for what they said was a fair and balanced ordinance, and they said that what we did was reasonable and feasible. And, you know, while they have now backed off from that position, they have not retracted the idea that it's reasonable, feasible, or balanced. So the fact that they have changed their minds about how they feel about the ordinance and backed away from the position they took has no bearing on what we use this letter to demonstrate, which is that this is a doable process and that it still remains that. So with that, I think unless anyone has anything to add, I'll close the public comment period. Okay. All right, so moving on, we'll go to, we have a discussion now, an item for discussion about parking. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember O'Sullivan to sort of do the warm-up for us on this.
Right. Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see a full room. The DAR on the agenda tonight, number 7937, is to talk about the digital gate equipment at our Deforest parking lots. I just want to give some background to some of our discussions regarding these gates. It came to Council's attention last year that the Deforest lot gates were coming to the end of their useful life. When we saw the $750,000 price tag for the new gates and an ongoing annual software expense of over $40,000, we knew it was time to look at other solutions. Besides ongoing discussions in the bi-weekly parking committee meetings with Councilwoman Little, Rita McNanny, and me, we engaged with our Tech Advisory Committee, Summit Parking Advisory Committee, and SDI. For those that don't know, the City of Summit has dozens of these advisory committees made up of volunteers who dedicate their time and expertise to make Summit a better place to live. I just wanted to say that although Councilwoman Little is not here, she wanted you to know that she agrees with the path forward. Our discussions with Tech Advisory brought about a variety of options, but it came down to what is going to be simple and cost-effective. So it was decided that we would remove the gates and treat our Deforest lot parking much like we treat our on-street parking, and to a similar degree like we treat our Bank Street lot parking, where there is no gate. This will save the city over $750,000 in capital costs and over $52,000 in annual operating expenses, and allow us to use the existing ALPR technology in our parking enforcement vehicles that works very well. That's automatic license plate readers that our cars use. Proceeding with this solution will eliminate the equipment malfunctions and the rainy days that make the gates inoperable. We've all seen days when the gates are raised, and those are days that we lose revenue. In 2019, those days cost the city almost $50,000 in parking revenue. There are a couple of differences between parking in Deforest and parking on the street that I want to highlight. The 3 Deforest lots will now be treated as one parking zone with 1 hour of free parking per day. There will be 4 new kiosks connected to the ALPR technology in our parking enforcement cars. You will have the option to pay with the Park Mobile app on your smartphone or directly through the kiosk with a credit card or currency. To get your free hour of parking, you will have to start your parking session with the Park Mobile app or at the kiosk. That's the same as getting your free 15 minutes on the street. Because the Deforest lots will now be treated as one parking zone, you will receive 1 hour of free parking per day in that zone. So for example, if you park in lot 1 and you go to the dry cleaner, and then you leave, and then you drive over and park in lot 3, and you go to the bank, you are not generating a new hour of free parking for yourself. Changing lots will not generate a new free hour for you. There are 2 different types of kiosks being offered to us. So we need a total of 4, and 4 kiosks, and there's just a difference in what they accept. So 4 kiosks that don't accept coins cost $38,444. 4 kiosks that will accept coins cost $43,589, the difference being $5,145. Both kiosks will accept credit cards and paper currency. The minimum to park in DeForest, any of our DeForest lots, is $1, and each incremental increase is $1 up to 5 hours. 5 hours or more will still be $50. If you're paying with currency, the exact change will be required at all of our kiosks in Summit. So Councilwoman Little and I fall on the side of the less expensive kiosk that does not accept coins. This will be a point of discussion tonight. As we embrace new technology, it's hard to envision that we would still use our workers' hours inefficiently collecting these coins. The other reason being is that the minimum to park in DeForest is $1, and people are more likely to have a dollar bill than 4 quarters, or as it might go, 8 quarters or 12 quarters. Another piece of this plan involves parking enforcement. All hiring for parking enforcement was put on hold because of the COVID pandemic. In 2019, which is not that long ago, Summit had 2 full-time parking enforcement officers and 4 part-time officers. We had a full-time officer retire in 2019 who we never replaced, and we had some part-timers resign that we have not restaffed either. Presently, that leaves us with 1 full-time officer and 1 part-time officer. With the savings that we are going to see from capital expenditures and operating cost savings with our new system, we are advocating for an additional full-time parking enforcement officer. While we appreciate the good work of our part-timers, we have to understand they are constantly on the lookout for full-time work, and they end up leaving for full-time work. This revolving door, so to speak, costs us money in training and background checks. We have been able to survive with a skeleton crew because the parking enforcement was near zero for many months last year. We all know the hit we have experienced in our parking revenues, and our hope is sooner rather than later we get back to pre-pandemic levels. With enforcement responsibilities rising once again all over town, we feel it is time to increase enforcement for the betterment of our community. How will it make it better? Well, it will encourage parking spaces to turn over and make spaces more available for our downtown shoppers. It will cut down on illegal parking near crosswalks and in front of fire hydrants, thereby making us all safer. And it will put cars in their proper locations. If you're a downtown employee, we want you to park in the employee lots and spaces so that we can save our shopper parking for our consumers to help the very businesses we need for a thriving city. I will turn it over to Rita McNanny to go over finer details, answer any questions, and keep the discussion going.
Thank you, Ms. McNanny.
Rita McNanny, Parking Services Director for the City of Summit. First, I'd like to expand on what Councilman O'Sullivan stated about the DeForest lots. The capital cost is extremely high, and with the last year and a half we had from COVID, we realized now's not the time to take on a big capital expense. Just a little history for everyone. The reason why the gates were put in was to prevent downtown employees and even out-of-town commuters from parking in the DeForest lots all day long and taking up valuable shopper parking. The only way to do that was the gates, and we were very successful, but it is costly equipment, and the only good thing with the gates is there was no enforcement. Years ago, when the utility was formed in 2000, we took on the management of the DeForest lots, and one of the things was that we had to hire a full-time parking enforcement officer to manage those 3 lots all day long, and that's what that officer did until the gates were put in. So again, this is not just saying we're looking for staff, there's a reason for it. One of the main concerns that I have, I understand the financial impact and why we're not going with the gates, but I have a major concern without having the gates that employees, prior to shoppers and visitors come to Downtown Summit, will flood those lots and there won't be parking again. So the key component in preventing that is we need enforcement. And, you know, I did a little history here as well that Danny mentioned, that, you know, back in 2017, I had 2 full-time and 2 part-time, so that's 3 full-time equivalent. And with the increased responsibilities, the increase of the downtown, in 2018, I strongly advocated for more enforcement officers, and many members of this council agreed to that and supported that in the hiring of 2 more part-timers. I've been utilizing part-time enforcement officers for 13 years. I've had 14 different officers part-time. The concept is great, but in reality with parking enforcement, it really is a hinder on us now at this point. Because what happens is we get good qualified people, but they're looking for full-time with benefits. So it is a constant revolving door, and that takes up a lot of time, a lot of manpower, and then they very shortly thereafter leave for full-time work. So I understand we're keeping all expenses down, but in 2018, it was agreed that I could increase my staff to levels that are expected. However, due to COVID, obviously last year we had a terrible year, and I had 2 vacancies. I didn't fill those vacancies because we weren't really doing that much enforcement. But they were doing other duties. You know, they go to each lot and they count the lots of how many open spaces, so I can keep real-time data that come back to this council to make any decisions that we need to make for parking services. And that data really shows us now, especially coming out of COVID, what is happening downtown. I take rides all the time, and I don't take it during lunchtime. I take it after lunch to see what's really going on. The downtown is coming back. It's, you know, the amount of cars is wonderful to see. But the amount of illegal parking and dangerous parking needs to be seen as well. But if I don't have enough officers to combat that problem, someone's going to get hurt. You know, it's not about revenue. It's about turnover for the downtown to keep our downtown vibrant, but also for safety issues. We also assist the police with crossing guard duties. And that's the #1 priority of our town is the children. And due to COVID, they don't have enough crossing guard officers. They come to us. Well, I'm down to 1.5, and that's taking police off from do crossing guard duty. I know school's ending very shortly, but again, thinking with the timeline of this going into September, and then school's coming back full-time in September, I need more officers, please. Does anyone have any questions about the project itself?
So we'll start with members of council, and then Councilmember Horton. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you very much, Rita. I have a few comments and then I have a few questions. So the comments are, I think this is definitely the right thing to do. The gates are unwelcoming, they're expensive, and the explicit goal of capturing revenue is consistently undermined by people hitting them with their cars and by the weather. I believe we shouldn't be spending any more money on gates ever, but we should be especially not spending $750,000 on new gates after the last 2 years of parking revenue that we've seen. So if we can improve the user experience by removing the gates and adding consistency through the Park Mobile option and save the parking authority money at the same time, then I think that's a win-win. The second comment is, as Councilmember O'Sullivan said, this did not come out of left field. We talked about this with Tech Advisory, we talked about it with the Parking Advisory Committee, and Summit Downtown as well. I think there are certainly more complicated setups that involve license plate readers and cameras, but I think this is a simple solution, and I think in its simplicity there is a certain elegance. Third, I'm going to advocate for 2 things. First is, I think we should spend the extra money to be able to collect coins. I think philosophically they are legal tender and should be accepted. The second thing is I think we should not increase our headcount. I think that we should certainly fill vacancies and get back to full strength. Maybe we could combine some of the part-time officers into a full-time officer, but I think I'm not sold on the idea that removing the gates definitely means we need a new person just for enforcement. So those are my 3 comments. My 3 questions are this. So number 1 is, if we're ending the service contract that we have now with Amano McGann, then should we expect some cost savings this year, or have we prepaid that money?
That is, I will prefer to discuss that offline.
Okay.
Because they have not been notified yet.
Oh, well. The jig is up.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. They have to be notified. I will do my best to negotiate as much as I can.
Okay.
But it is an annual contract that we are involved with them in currently.
Okay. The second question is, how long do we think that the kiosks are likely to last? So we have these kiosks already in town that I think we got 3 or 4 years ago, right? So
Which is, I'm sorry,
right, no, but
which
the ones that we're
kiosks are we
replacing them
talking?
with now are the same ones as that are other places
Yes,
in town.
that's
right?
correct, correct.
Okay. So how long do we think all of our kiosks are going to last?
Well, the lifespan on those kiosks are about anywhere from 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
So
then 10 to 15 years starting this year for these ones also.
Yes.
Okay. And then for the benefit of business owners and SDI board members who may be watching, what are the appropriate lots for employees to park in?
There's a K lot, which is on Maple Street, that's back behind CVS. There's a tier garage, it's in the heart of downtown on Springfield Avenue. There is also the Broad Street garage on Broad Street. There's the Elm Street lot on Elm Street. There's also all-day parking for residents or employees on Elm Street. There's a Sampson lot, which is by the middle school. And there's also 60 spaces in the Broad Street East lot. And there's various green-bagged employee-only parking in various parts of the downtown.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Council President. Thank you for that presentation. That was, it's interesting. Danny told me this, and I didn't really understand it until you said it, that you had 2 full-time and 4 part-time, right? So I understand it that you have now 1 full-time and 1 part-time. So that changes the game a little bit. I would consider thinking that you may need a full-time person because part-time people do leave. And the other question I had for you is, what is the scope? So you mentioned they do some crossing guard responsibilities, but do they go beyond downtown to give parking?
Yes, actually, we took that on in 2017 for the police department. We handle all the time-limited streets within the whole of the city of Summit, besides also the time-limited streets and the meter locations in downtown Summit. So if, let's say, there's someone by a high school who a student's parking on their street, that resident calls us and we respond and we have to enforce that. So that's coming up in September as well. We had calls even up till last week. And I said, unfortunately, I do not have enough staff and we have to help the police department with crossing guard posts. So that's a priority for us. But that responsibility is coming back in September. And the responsibility of enforcing all 3 Deforest lots is, it's not as if, let me explain to you this way. If you're in a long-term lot, the car's parked there. The car's going to be there for mostly the day. So they go in and they do that lot or that garage. They're done. With the Deforest lots or Bank Street lot, we are constantly, people are coming in and out. And yes, we're going back to an honor system. We really are. So we have to make sure with education, we're doing the engineering with the kiosks, we're doing education where we'll explain that you have to start your transaction first and give people time to get used to it. But trust me, I've been here 20 years and we had no gates. They will go in and they will try and not pay and take up the spaces. The enforcement is a key component to the success because the reason why we put the gates in was because we heard from all the downtown businesses that their customers weren't coming because they couldn't find parking in Summit at 10:30, 11 o'clock when the stores were opening up because they were filled with employees. And we gave out tickets. We had a graduated fine system here for years. People didn't care if they got $100 tickets. They wanted that convenience and they'll pay for it and they'll take up that space. So I'm trying to give a really realistic, because we've done it already, but I totally understand that we want to take the gates away, but enforcement's got to be a strong component of this or you're going to hurt the downtown in the long run.
Council President, can I just ask one more question? I'm so
absolutely.
sorry. But my second question, and I apologize, I don't know this.
That's okay.
The employees, is there a permitting process whereby there's some accountability on the employer too? So, because I
Yes.
actually know employees that do park downtown, and I was like, do you park there all day? So I was having a conversation with someone, so I'm just curious how we know to get them into those lots and keep them accountable.
Yes, I mean, we, for years, we had actual block captains that would go to employers, and anytime there's a new business, when there's a certificate of occupancy, I ask for the name of that business so I can at least get the applications and let them know how to do everything. But if people want convenience, they're going to take that space for convenience. And there is kind of tunnel vision when it comes to that. That's what we deal with every day. As much as we ask employers, employees to stop doing it, the only control we have them to move them is to ticket them. It's the only way, because we can ask nicely, we can do another marketing program, ask downtown to help us out, but people are going to park where they want to park, and that's why enforcement's key.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I've lived in this town for 32 years. When I first moved here, the Deforest Lights had these little houses, and you'd pull in, right, and the lady was there, and they would give you your ticket and whatever. And then they removed them, and it was hell to try to find a place to park. Absolutely was.
Yep.
And no one really liked the gates when they put them in. I mean, we used to all joke, #hate the gates. But the reality is, if you don't enforce it, then people will take advantage. So I don't vote, but I certainly just want to put my support to hiring a full-time person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Nida.
Thank you, Council President. Rita, it's nice to see you in person.
Yes, yes, same here.
So, I agree about removing the gates, because $750,000 is a lot of expenditure.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially when the parking utility has been hammered this past year. But even if it wasn't $750,000. First of all, can you remind folks when the gates were originally put up? It was much before any one of our times here, so maybe it helps to give people context.
In 2012, we installed them at the end of the year, and we started first of 2013. And prior to that, there were gates from 1988 to 2000 with the houses that Mayor Radis mentioned. And then we took them away, and there was 2 hours free parking. And we realized that was not working. So then we put the gates in, and we gave an hour free. And, and I know the gates can be cumbersome, but it did prevent abuse of the parking system in and of itself. And we didn't have to enforce. Now we have to enforce.
No, I understand that. With regard to between the coin and just simply taking dollar bills or the bills, if you will, frankly, it would be good to know from SDI, from the business community that's directly impacted there, what their preference is, if they think that their customers are going to really be impacted by that. I'd rather not spend the extra $5,000 if we don't need to. Why spend the money if we don't need to? So if there are members of the public here who have an opinion, you can share it with us now and tell us. I'll defer to the council president. What you take on it. Yeah, but we have people here. Maybe we can get some sense of what people think it makes sense to have coins or not. If we can do the savings, I think that's better. The one question that I do have is I want to make sure, because I use the transfer station a fair amount, and that signal there doesn't work. Does not work. Does not work. Great. I could park right up to the line. I could park a couple of inches behind the line, in front of the line. I could wait there. And then we have a person there at the same time. And I think many people, including myself, if I wasn't sitting on council, I probably would be more frustrated about it than the people who go, what the heck is going on here? Why did you invest in technology and at the same time need a person? Are we going to be in a position where we invest in technology, but then we need, because people are constantly violating, we're going to be like, we need more and more enforcement? Because then it's like, where are we going here with it?
No, I think it's 2 separate issues, quite honestly. One issue is there is no enforcement mechanism needed now with the gates. We're taking away those gates. So the enforcement aspect comes back into play.
Yeah.
That's not by choice. It's just, it's inevitable. You take out the gates, you need enforcement.
I understand that.
So the technology, we're not putting in license plate readers,
The
standalone.
technology at the transfer station and this technology are completely different, correct?
Yes, we're not
And there's-
we're not doing that.
And the technology that you have for license plate readers, it's proven to be successful? We're
Yes.
not going to have an issue with going around with an enforcement officer having to figure out between the technology that you're going to put in, so they can tell whether the car has paid for the time.
It's the same exact technology that's on the street, and they do it every day.
Okay.
Just to reassure you, it's
Yes,
done every
because
day.
I'm sure
And they,
that
they check the
virtually
Park
everybody
Mobile.
here that has gone to the transfer station knows exactly what I'm talking about as far as that technology, and we don't want to have a repeat associated with that, right? So.
Is that it? Councilmember Naidoo, are you done with your
I'm
questions?
done, yeah.
Okay. I did have a couple for you as well,
Sure.
Ms. McNanny. One is, I understand that under this new system, we won't need the parking ambassadors. Is that correct? Or is that not correct?
No, but they're not aware of it yet, but that is correct.
Okay, whoops. All right, well, maybe they'll apply to be parking enforcement officers. And then the other question I had was, if we go with the coins versus the machine that accepts coins, that's an additional $5,000 roughly. Are there also additional labor costs that would be?
There wouldn't
collecting
be,
the coins?
there's additional labor time, because you have to picture the cash boxes for the Deforest current system are very large. They're very large.
Okay.
The ones for the kiosks are very slim. They're about this big.
Okay, how often do they fill, like the Bank Street lot, how often does that fill up?
We collect that 3 times a week.
3 times a week? Okay.
So again, that's a more short-term lot. Even though it's $1, someone will know they're going in there for a quick hour and they'll throw 4 quarters in. With the Deforest, I don't know how much coinage we're going to have. I'd prefer not to collect the coinage, but I understand it. But usually people are staying, our average length of stay, our highest average, the first is 30 minutes, which is free, so then there's no coinage to consider. But the next highest is 2.5 hours. So again, 2.5 hours would be $3. And the one thing that I do want to stress also with this is that there will be no change given. Currently, the Deforest lots do provide change. These, just like on the street and all the different other parking lots, exact change is required. So, that we're going to stress through our communication and marketing. So let people know. And then also,
In this case, exact change is dollar bills or.
or coins if you get the.
quarters, Right, but
yeah.
we're not talking about fractions of dollars. It's always a dollar increment.
Yeah, oh yes, that's why I designed it that way, yeah. So
Okay.
it's easier that way.
Right,
Less
okay.
coins to collect.
And do you have a sense of like what percentage of people pay in coins versus?
It is,
in cash,
it's
you
a
know, in
quarter, 75% is with credit card and Park Mobile, and they vary year to year. But it's about 25% is still people pay with coins.
Coins and bills or just coins?
Coins and bills,
Okay.
yeah. But I don't have that data here this
Okay.
evening for
And
that.
So basically, with your existing staff, you can collect those.
Yeah, it'll be
coins.
more often. But we're saving some time because we're not having to supply the change and clean
Okay,
out. So there's a trade-off. But I think if we do get the coins, we'll have to collect them more often, that's all. We'll just have to keep an eye on it.
Okay, thank you.
Could I
Yes.
just ask, I'm
Sure,
sorry,
go ahead.
I was asking Councilman O'Sullivan because I wasn't clear on something. When you say it will not give back change, so let's assume that you have a $5 bill, but you have only spent enough time for whatever, $1 worth of time. It won't give you back the $4?
No, because these are the digital kiosks, they're all the same, only exact change. It would give you a receipt saying that you're owed a $4 refund. Then that person needs to call us and come to City Hall, and I have to provide a cash refund. Well, these machines, that's why they're less expensive, they do not provide change.
Oh, so when you say, every time I hear change, I keep on thinking of coins, right? I keep on thinking that you're saying that it won't give back like quarters.
Any type of monetary change, whether it's dollar bills or coins, it won't. These machines do not do that.
Suppose somebody only has like a large bill.
Then you can also
encouraging
use your
them
credit
then you
card.
have to come back and.
Or you can go to City Hall and come here and you can get your change.
Right.
Or it encourages you to use Park Mobile or a credit card.
Council President, one more clarification thing.
Yes, go
So
ahead.
that's the case also right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
okay,
good not
so-
wait for
but-
years.
Right, but
Yeah.
what we're proposing, right, is much easier because you could also use Park Mobile, too.
And a
right?
credit card.
Or a credit card.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
So there's two more options available.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the current kiosks do not give currency change?
No, the only lots that do give change currently are the Deforest lots. We're taking that away.
Got it. But
So
it's what else happens everywhere else in town?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And
So
with
this
the
will
added,
look very much like the Bank Street lot, correct?
All the kiosks on the streets and in the parking lots
Yep.
except for Deforest.
Okay.
with the added benefit also, through you, Council President, is that you could never get stuck in a lot if there's no gate there.
Yes,
So,
yes.
so that's a good,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
So you could always leave if you have to get out, and we can square it up later. That's, yes. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I just have
Councilman?
one more point,
Yes.
because talking about people that pay with currency or an app or a credit card, it's 3/4 of our customers pay via app or credit card
Yes.
as opposed to people that are using cash.
Yes.
So the minority of people are using cash.
So I'm now going to open it up to members of the public if anyone has any thoughts or questions. Go ahead. And Ms. McNanny, if you want to take, maybe you can take a seat at one of the tables and then you can answer questions if they come up. Does that work?
Yeah.
Yep, then you have to keep popping up and down.
Hi,
Go ahead.
Karen Rayhoff, 34 Park Terrace. It just occurred to me as you were speaking about this, that I know of a waiter in town who felt it was too expensive to park in the employee lot, so he used to run around trying to game the system. So what, I don't know, I imagine it's being considered, but maybe we have an issue with what the employees are paying. I don't know what that fee is. But we're worrying, the gates were intended to make sure that the employees didn't take up the customer shopping. Employees are customers as well, and maybe we have a problem with that system that we need to address, maybe in terms of carpooling or incentives for public transportation. I don't know, I don't have the institutional knowledge on it, but I just thought of that story, and I wanted to throw that out into the mix.
Yes, we are aware that there are folks who game the system. Ms. McNanny, would you like to talk about the fees?
Sure. The fees for all-day parking is $4 for the day. We've had some discussions over the years on whether or not, we lower that rate for, let's say, a part-time employee. But people would just wait until after lunch and then go pay the meter for the cheaper rate, even though they're parking all day. So that got abused. So we took that away. So it's $4 per day.
And employees can also help with that. Employers can also subsidize that.
Absolutely, yes. We have a corporate code program. Employers can maybe, match half of the payment or fully pay for their parking. That is up to the employer. We do have that program.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Come on up.
Hi, Andy Miniger, 15 Edgar Street. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and in person. My wife's going to kill me for saying this. I'm just now remembering she was absolutely stuck inside the lot at one time. So for that reason alone, I'm fine with the gates being removed. For other reasons as well. I have 3 questions. For Ms. McNanny, have you ever done a timing of a full cycle of one enforcement vehicle making it through all of the paid spots in the city?
Well, in one day, that would probably be impossible.
In a day? Okay.
Yeah, because there's about 15 lots. Well, now we're adding 3, and I have 2 garages that we have to maintain, plus all the street meters.
And this may be too premature of a question, and I don't know if it's for council or for Ms. McNanny. What would be the plan for outreach by the city to residents about this change? How to pay, and then it can be paid by Park Mobile. And then what is the plan for some signage about the ability to use Park Mobile? Because I think that stuff, outreach to the public, would be really crucial to making this a smooth and successful transition.
If approved, one of our things is obviously we're going to get big signs made, put in each lot, showing the public what's coming, and then also that Park Mobile, what the zone number will be, how they can make payments. So we plan on doing that. And then also, we're going to get educational cards made up that if I have enough staff to put one person in each lot, after everything's installed, to explain to every customer pulling in what's entailed now. They have to start the transaction first. They will get their hour free, but they have to start their transaction. And then after that, with the ALPR, we have a warning system. So if someone doesn't pay, we would give them a warning, and then maybe we'd give them a second warning. But especially, we have to have the enforcement early on so we can let these employees know not to hop from lot to lot, and also they shouldn't really be parking there. Sometimes business owners or business people, they come in for an hour or two meeting, and they get an hour free in Deforest. That's okay. We're looking for the long-term employees or commuters eventually stop from parking there all day and taking a valuable customer parking. So we'll give out educational packets, and then we'll have signage and we'll have staff in the lots. Thanks.
Thank you. I think the mayor had something to
Yeah,
add.
I can add to that. I was just actually today talking to our communications chief about this issue and what's going to happen if it gets passed. And there will be a complete communications rollout on all of our media outlets, whether a combination of email, social media, everything.
Print media.
Print media, absolutely. So she's working on a plan, first of all. Secondly, when we had the new kiosks installed a couple of years ago, I did multiple Facebook Live and other Facebook videos. We also had a training session with an actual machine.
At the library.
Rita was there at the library, and we did a specific outreach to senior citizens to show them how to use the machines and what we were going to do. So it is absolutely critical that we get all this information out. Now, I think it was a little harder 2 years ago because these were all new machines. People are somewhat used to these machines now, right? Because we've had them for a couple of years. They're just going to be in a new location. But we're going to have a big communications blitz in order to get this information out.
Are there any other comments from members of the public? Come on up.
Get my second comment.
Yep. You earned it.
Hey, I left my husband home with the kids, so I'm here all night. No, Dory Gagnon again, 27 Bedford. So I want to thank you, Mayor, for just saying that about the senior citizens, because that was a concern of mine. I just got my parents their first iPhone, so they still haven't activated yet because they have a flip phone and they're terrified of what's going to come with it. So that's a concern that, learning the Park Mobile and what's going to happen. But I was here when we had the houses, and it was welcoming to see the same attendants, and you'd hand them the slip. So I'm, opening the gates is a great thing, but like Councilman Nadeau said, when we had the transfer station, I have a friendly face now every time I go down there, because guess what? I got these fancy new license plates that I was donating to New Jersey State that I thought I was doing a great thing for, but it does not read my license plate. So I sit there waiting, and she just looks at me, and I say, no, just give it like another couple minutes. It's going to work. And it never works.
So you have specialty plates?
I have specialty plates.
That is unfortunate. It doesn't matter what vendor I would use. That unfortunate, like the new leaf plates that have the leaves on them.
Yeah.
No camera can read those. So I wish the state of New
That's-
Jersey would take away some of these.
That's something to take into
signs.
consideration, because it doesn't work at the transfer station.
But we're not considering that for these lots.
So what, it doesn't, that's,
No, we're not. No, what I'm saying is there's license plate recognition equipment
Oh,
on
okay.
the actual enforcement vehicles that read the plates and then
Okay.
time them.
but when we go through these kiosks, it's a different,
It's the ones that are on the street currently now on Springfield Avenue and all the
Okay.
other parking lots like Bank Street lot.
Okay.
It's the same exact kiosk.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not
it's a little
doing any
different.
ALPR other than enforcement purposes.
Okay, so, and then also, another question, having an ambassador, because now when we go to the transfer station, I know the city of Summit is paying that lady to stay in that house all of the time and check all the cars that go through, so that I don't think was ever planned for when that was being built, but she's there permanently. Is there any way to use her resources throughout the city of Summit, or does she just have to be stationed there 24/7?
Ms. McNanny, can you answer that?
Well, I think that because of my understanding, and Aaron, please speak on this, but my understanding, parking utility pays for the salary of this ambassador, but the real need is They don't have enough staff down there. I know that the ALPR, but it's also a deterrent for people just blowing through that light and having it checked. Sometimes, like I said, the reader does not work. We have set up mechanisms to have it looked at again. But the main thing is it's also for people that are out-of-towners that don't come to our transfer station. But the main thing is because of the staffing down at the transfer station, that it's good to have a presence there. That was why it was decided to put someone there, to have a presence down there.
It just might be an option if you're looking for someone else throughout the city of Summit.
Well, I
And
wouldn't
then-
want to take away from their need. That's
Yeah.
their need. I just pay for it, so. You know.
And then another thing, she was saying about employees, I've been an employee in downtown Summit for 15-plus years. An electric bike station would be great to have in your redevelopment area. Even just now, someplace to house bicycles safely. I know bikes get snipped and they get stolen very, very quickly without you even knowing. But if there's a place for electric bikes, I think people would utilize electric bikes very quickly to get to town. I know they're skyrocketing and people buy them, but if you could purchase, if somebody can purchase even just to ride to the train station and take the train into the city, it would open up a lot more parking spaces. If the city of Summit could look at something like that, maybe you have, that would be a great resource. And then, like me as an employee and as a resident, I would free up a space here.
So Councilmember Naida can actually probably speak.
Rita, if you
Okay, you have something on that, Rita?
I'm looking at Aaron because that's something Aaron and I have been trying to do for like the last 4 years. And we were looking at different models, but then with COVID, everything just stopped. I know it's earmarked on the redevelopment project. That's something that we want to look into, but everything kind of stopped with COVID, but it's been on our radar for the last 3 or 4 years to get some sort of electric bike system here in Summit.
So just on the bike, Dory, the 2016, the New Jersey Walk Bike Coalition came here to council, and they had proposed, so at the, off of Union Plaza, when you go down that parking lot by the train station, there is actually a bike depot there, or station, right? And from 2016 till today, what we've been able to get to is the point where New Jersey Transit has entered into an agreement with the city and with the New Jersey Walk Bike Coalition to allow for the construction of a bike shelter. It probably can house about 30-plus bikes. It would be with a gate key, and it could be both for daily use as well as for long-term use. So, as you know, or you may not know, I've been involved for a long time with the Summit Conservancy. And so the Conservancy is, and this is, I'm putting my Conservancy hat, but I would walk out and speak there, just for the purposes of this, I think I can say it from here. We're looking in partnering with the New Jersey Walk Bike Coalition to fund majority of the funding for construction of the Bike Walk Coalition. We're trying to work with the city, with New Jersey Transit, of getting an agreement into place. But exactly for the reasons that you just outlined, which is that there are people who want to make sure there's a secure location to put bike ride.
That's great.
Bikes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, are there any other comments from members of the public on this topic? Hello?
Leslie Salcedo, 412 Morris Avenue. I just have a question. If we are going to be getting rid of the gates and the residents are going to be asked to use the kiosks and the Park Mobile, recently council changed the fees and that service fee is now on the Summit residents. Will council reconsider taking those fees back?
If you pay with cash, the Park Mobile fees don't apply, is that correct?
Well, yes, but we're also trying to promote the use of Park Mobile
Okay, and
because
what
it is
about-
very convenient
Uh-huh.
and it's less labor time on us to collect and count all the cash.
What about credit cards, is that?
Credit card, no, there is not a fee on top of the credit card.
Okay,
Just your
so-
own credit card.
So
fee
it's only if you use Park Mobile that there's a 25 cent
Cents.
service fee?
per
And I don't think
transaction.
there is any intent, we did that initially to get the program started, and I don't think there's any intent to go back to us covering that. It's kind of an impossibility given the fiscal hit that the parking utility has taken in the past year. I don't
Right,
know.
and Councilman O'Sullivan, when we talked about this the first time, when you voted to put the fee on the resident, my recollection is that Summit was the only town among many in the state.
One of the last to still absorb that fee, and that fee was ending up costing the city $50,000. It was increasing, and it was getting close to $50,000. And the other thing, it's not just Summit residents that we were paying for. We were paying for people coming in from Maplewood or Millburn. So ultimately, you were still paying, your tax dollar was going to subsidize their parking.
Okay.
And so when you use Park Mobile app, it is a convenience. You can just start walking, go on your way. There are workarounds. If you pay with a credit card at a kiosk and you put your phone number in, you will have the same experience where if you're sitting in a restaurant and your parking's going to end, you will get a text from the kiosk to add more time. You will not have to go back to the kiosk to add more time. So, I'm a Park Mobile fan. I use it because it's accepted widely in a variety of cities. But you're right. I mean, yeah, we are asking you to pay that 25 cents because it became untenable for the city of Summit to keep absorbing that.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, so I think unless anyone wants to double back up here, we'll say thank you to Rita, and
Thank you. My
thank you,
pleasure.
Rita. This is really helpful. Okay, so we're now moving on. Oh, I'm sorry?
Sorry. One thing I did want to mention is we didn't talk about the timeline. If it,
Okay.
we're discussing it this evening, and then it's going to, from my understanding, it's going to come back to you at the next meeting, the June 14th meeting, for a final decision. And then what I'm hoping is that our least busiest month in the downtown is August. So I'd like to have the old equipment taken out, new equipment put in, start for when we start in September. That is my goal. But again, I'll wait for your decision at the next meeting.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Rita.
So we're now moving on to ordinances for hearing. So our first one is administrative policy. Madam Clerk, could you please read that ordinance?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 21-3236, an ordinance amending and supplementing the Code of the City of Summit, Chapter 35, Development Regulations Ordinance, Part 2, Zoning, Article 9, General Provisions, subsection 35-9.2, Prohibited Uses, to prohibit the sale, growth, and distribution of recreational marijuana.
Councilmember Naidoo?
Thank you, Council President. For those who are keeping track of what council does, you will recall that back in December of 2020, we had passed exactly the same ordinance that we're passing tonight. And you may be wondering why. The reason is very simple. The state passed a law in the interim that basically negated any municipal law that had been existing at that time with regard to marijuana. And so therefore, and put a date restriction of saying that if a municipality did not put in any type of ordinance by August of this year, then for the next 5 years, that municipality could not do any types of restrictions on where recreational marijuana distribution or sale could be done, as well as for medical. What we do here tonight is we're basically putting us back exactly where we were back in December 2020. That is to permit the sale of medical marijuana in business districts that would permit it right now or then, and similarly restrict the distribution and sale of recreational marijuana until, as we discussed at that point in time in December, we have a fulsome discussion with residents as to what they want to happen with regard to this issue and see where we go. And with that, I'd like to introduce this ordinance for hearing.
I second.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open the hearing. So are there any comments from members of council? Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. The last time we discussed this issue was December of 2020. At that time, I outlined my thoughts about it. I explained that I applaud the work of the groups that do the difficult work of discouraging and preventing the use and abuse of drugs. I also noted that 69% of the people in Summit voted in support of the referendum last November to make recreational marijuana legal. I spoke about how tobacco and alcohol are also extremely harmful, yet at the very same meeting in December, we voted to expand the definition of a brewery in the downtown. I explained that while we don't yet have all the details, that I believe we should have the difficult conversations about the zoning and other regulations instead of simply voting on a blanket ban. I said it was not the time to close the door on an entire industry. Now, very little has changed. We still don't know everything about the licensing process. We don't know everything about the potential tax revenue available, though we certainly do know more. And I think we do know enough to have a conversation as a governing body and as a community about what our overwhelming support for the ballot measure means in a practical sense for our city. We can and we should decide on what parts of this industry do or do not make sense in Summit. Seeing as how we're doing exactly the same thing that we did in December, I simply still don't support this measure, and I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Does anyone else on council have any comments? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the public then. If there are any comments from the public, come on up. Come on up.
Good evening. It's great to see you. My name is Annette Dwyer, and I live at 116 Maple Street in Summit. First and foremost, I am speaking without prepared remarks. I don't feel at this moment that I need to convince the broad base of the council to vote in favor of the ban. I do believe that there's a majority understanding that it is the right thing to do, to take time to understand what the legislation means. I'm here specifically to address Councilman Vartan's position of not voting in favor of the ban for the reasons to clarify for the general population. I'm speaking as the chair of the Summit, of Shaping Summit Together, which has absorbed the mission of the Municipal Alliance. And we are, among the police department, community services, and the Department of Community Programs, working very hard to try and keep youth and families and adults safe as much as we can, and to prevent the abuse of substances. I am also a voter in the state of New Jersey. I read that referendum. The referendum of that language, as you said, Councilman O'Sullivan, way back in the fall and in December, was very confusing. So I personally voted not in favor of that referendum. My view of all of the environmental factors relating to the verbiage, relating to the conversation, the people in the background who may be reaching out to you as elected officials, talking to you about the pros and the cons of the legalization of marijuana, are all misinterpretation of what is at hand here. In general, this legalization of marijuana is nothing short of, using a lot of the traffic language that we've heard tonight, nothing short of a Mack truck going at full speed through the communities of the state of New Jersey, jackknifing through communities, causing a lot of potential collateral damage. Unless we basically put a traffic light that is a red and a yellow signal, which is stop, proceed with caution, which I believe is what council is trying to do with this ban, that we will lose control over the ability to protect our residents and all the people who visit Summit and all the youth and families in this community. And that is not to say that I do not understand the argument based from residents in this community who may want to legalize marijuana, may want to have recreational retail shops in town for that. What I am advocating for tonight is I would be proud to be able to say that my community, my local government, was voting unanimously in favor of banning the cultivation, sale, and distribution of cannabis in Summit, with the idea that you will continue, as you have in every major opportunity or threat to our community, take it under some sort of community-wide study, that you would do workshops, you would do community meetings, you would try and understand that 69%. The data suggests potentially, because the language, as Councilman O'Sullivan remembers, was so vague and so miscommunicated that there's probably a mishmash of people who voted to legalize. They could be moms of young people who don't want their underage child to get a police record or go before juvenile court over having an experimental cannabis experience. It could be people of color who are disproportionately affected by criminalization of cannabis in their possession. There is so much diversity of this particular issue that we can be proud of our community by putting that red, yellow light up that says, stop, proceed with caution, and please, to vote in favor of the ban for the cultivation, sale, and distribution of cannabis in Summit, which does not say that it'll never be in Summit. It just says that our local government will retain control over what happens in zip code 07901 to avoid that Mack truck going at 1,000 miles an hour, jackknifing through communities, potentially causing collateral damage in ways that we do not yet know, and to not be subject to a statewide or universal legislation which is murky at its best description. That would make this community very proud. We elect you because you are sage and you are confident in what you do, and because you do take things under advisement and you study it. I understand, Councilman Vartan, where you're coming from in terms of trying to represent a stakeholder group and a group of people that may see, no downside to something like this. But I'm asking you, by voting in favor of the ban to cultivate, sell, and distribute cannabis in Summit, you are not not representing that stakeholder group. You're basically defending our community by saying, let's put the red, yellow sign up that says, stop, proceed with caution. And that would make everybody proud. It would make the medical community proud. It would make the youth and families proud. It would make all residents proud that we could have one voice on this very, very important topic. So I'm speaking directly to you, and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I would really be very, very fervently proud of our community if we could have a unanimous vote in favor of the ban, take it under advisement, put it into workshop mode, talk with the people about why the 69% may have voted for it, and understand the true implications of medical marijuana in its community of stakeholdership, the retail side of it, the manufacture, the distribution, the tax revenue, all of the commercialization. But what we've seen even in this pandemic is that you could mandate something and there's so many different workarounds. But if you don't get people working in the common, toward the common goal of protection of the public health and safety of the community, then you have a lot of collateral damage. Thank you for your time this evening, and I appreciate all you do to keep our community safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dwyer. Any other comments from members of the public?
Hi. Do you want me to state my name and address again?
Yes, please.
Rachel Kramer, 88 Elm Street. And I followed this a little bit back in December. And again, I'm not up here to try to change your minds either. I think that everybody has made their decision on it. I am a member of the community who voted yes on the referendum. I'm the mother of 2 small children. And I'm proud that there are independent speakers and thinkers on this council, whether or not I agree with them on every single issue. Councilman Naidu mentioned that we're passing this as a wait-and-see approach, and they want to involve members of the community to gauge their thoughts, their feelings, and how we should proceed. So I guess my question is, what is that? How does that look like? What does that look like to you? How are you going to start engaging members of the community? 69% of Summit voted yes on a referendum. We're taking a wait-and-see approach. A lot of other towns are taking a wait-and-see approach. Some are not. So what's our 90, 180-day timeline for this, or longer, if there is one?
Ms. Kramer, the reason that we're doing this is because we have that 180-day timeline. So this is to preserve the status quo, to allow us time.
No. I use that as like an example. I know that
Okay.
this is a wait and see. I'm trying to figure out how members of the community are going to be engaged moving forward before, when and if we change our decisions. Does
I
that?
think one of the things we need to wait for is to wait for the rest of the regulatory framework to be completed, which to my knowledge is not. And I think the other thing is we need to, we will have a public meeting to engage the community. I think we need to understand sort of from a zoning aspect, because people say, oh, we're going to make it look nice, but we need to know, how do you make it look nice? I mean, how do you describe that in zoning terms to get what you want in Summit and, in the places you want it? So there's a lot of work to be done. The planning board is going to have to get involved, I believe, as well as engaging the public. I will turn it over to Councilmember Naidoo since he's.
Westfield had like a cannabis coalition or something, and it was, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it, they wound up not moving, they wound up banning it, making this same decision, but there was like a coalition with head of police, a social worker, lots of members, like a public member, like a community member, and so on and so forth. And I can send you information. I'm not suggesting like you do something exactly the same, but
No,
if
I'm
you
aware
want
of what
to
they've- we are aware of what they've done.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilmember Allen, did you have something to add?
Thank you, Council President. So I would say that when you look at the state right now, they haven't shaped what that looks like. So for example, delivery into your neighborhoods. There's drivers, right? Going into your neighborhoods. How does that look? Do we want people driving through our neighborhoods making deliveries? What does manufacturing look like? It's a big building, a small building. Where is it located? Do you want it closer to Route 22? Do you want it near your downtown? So are there vendor lists? Like, who are the growers? And who do you give those contracts to? Like, the state hasn't shaped their policies around that. So I think, to your point, this is such a transformational vote. And in order to make sure that the communities have local control versus the state, because if we said tonight, we're going to vote in favor of this, the state basically controls how that looks, how it shapes your community. And I think, to that point, I don't know exactly what it looks like in reaching out to the community, but we absolutely must have all the stakeholders as part of this process, because having local control in what that looks like and how it plays out, to me, is incredibly important. So it's not the wait and see is more about what is the state doing, and then how do we shape that so that our community can live with those results.
Yeah, I completely agree with Councilwoman Allen and Council President Fox. So from my perspective, we need to get clearer guidance from the state. What happened, as folks will remember, we had this referendum, and I agree with Annette, and Danny, the question was kind of murky, and people could have voted depending upon how they perceived and their different reasons. And people of good faith could come to very different conclusions about this. So I think we shouldn't assume anybody's vote here is not a person who's trying to do something that's right for the community, right? Everybody's trying to do what's right for the community. But I think where we are right now is we get better guidance from the state. Then what the process is for all of these things, we'll have internal discussion. We'll have to have internal discussion with the police department. We'll have to have internal discussion with the Department of Community Services. We'll have to have internal discussion about, okay, we have restrictions, for example, with how close an alcoholic beverage one retail place can be next to another one. Do we do the same for marijuana? Do we do different? Other towns have been talking about that as well. Once we get an internal sense, then I think we can go out to the public and say, hey, listen, we vetted this internally. These are the couple of options that are here. What do you guys think that this makes sense for us as a community? And again, we may end up with a community, as in other issues, where people are split. People who are very passionate about it being one way or the other, and thinking, this has to be the right answer, but this is difficult. This is, again, I'll go back. I've said this over in my entire career sitting on this dais, which is all we do is line drawing exercises. People can disagree on where this side of the line we should be on, but that's all we're trying to do here in order to see where we are. And at this specific point in time, because of how the state has framed the issue for us, we really have very little choice other than to do what we're doing tonight.
To take
Otherwise,
all or
we hand
nothing.
over all decision making, and that's dangerous, I think.
No, and that's fine, and I understand, and thanks for the clarification. You alluded to the community involvement, so I wanted to get more context around that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer. Any other comments from members of the public? David, do you need a cough drop? You need a cough drop?
I would love a cough drop. I'd love a half a dozen cough drops at this point in time.
I'm not sure I have a dozen.
Hello again, David Fosgate, 32 Laurel Avenue here in Summit. My last comments were spontaneous, so I want to start by concurring with Mayor Rados that yesterday was fantastic. It was great to see everyone, and it was quite an event, and great to see Summit come out as a community. And that's what I hope for you voting in favor of this ordinance, is we, once again, coming together as a community and deciding this as a community, because simply put, voting for this ordinance ensures that. Voting against this ordinance dispels that. And I think this is too important of a societal issue as a resident and as a father of 3 daughters to let this just go by the wayside. I had more here, and it's not really prepared. I'm not really reading from these notes, so I'll submit them or not, because everything was said that needed to be said by previous speakers. But I thank you for reintroducing this ordinance, because you didn't have to. And that allows us as Summit to decide how we are going to be as Summit, right? Like other municipalities such as Westfield and others are doing. And, you know, whatever voters of this state said, you know, is not indicative of Summit. So thank you for bringing this up again. I know there are a lot of people out there that aren't paying attention that should be. So this will ensure that, you know, a debate is had and attention is brought to this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fosgate. Any other comments from members of the public? Speak now. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to members of council if anyone hasn't, or the mayor, if anyone has anything else they'd like to say. Okay, that everyone said what they want to say? Okay, so we've had a lot of discussions about this over the time, you know, over the last few months, and I think this is the conservative approach. It's the approach that allows us to get all the information and make sure that we preserve our community and, you know, and the things that people care about in this community, and that we take a careful, thoughtful approach and don't find ourselves sort of locked in for 5 years. So I think this is a wise move. I want to clarify that this does not affect medical marijuana, and I know that's been a concern for people. So medical marijuana is a separate track that is allowed. We're talking about only recreational marijuana in this ordinance. And, you know, and absolutely, as we get information from the state, we will start to engage the public, and we will start the process of making a longer-term decision, an informed decision that protects what we value in this community and the character of this community. So with that, I'm going to close this hearing. And we'll move on to ordinances for final consideration. Madam Clerk?
Yes. Ordinance 21-3236, an ordinance amending and supplementing the Code of the City of Summit, Chapter 35, Development Regulations Ordinance, Part 2, Zoning, Article 9, General Provisions, subsection 35-9.2, Prohibited Uses, to prohibit the sale, growth, and distribution of recreational marijuana.
Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you, Council President. In light of the hearing that we just had, I'd like to introduce this ordinance and request that we vote in favor of prohibiting the sale, growth, and distribution of recreational marijuana while permitting the sale of medical marijuana.
Nope. I was going to say a second. Sorry. I thought you were done.
We're good?
Sorry, there was that.
Okay.
My fault, Lisa, my fault.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidoo?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Nay.
President Fox?
Yes. Okay, so the motion, the ordinance carries. Moving on to, we have an ordinance for introduction, 2 ordinances for introduction. So, Madam Clerk, could you please read the title of the first ordinance?
Yes. ID number 7888, an ordinance to vacate a portion of the right-of-way of Ashwood Court adjacent to Block 4208, Lot 13, and Block 4208, Lot 14 in the City of Summit, County of Union, State of New Jersey.
Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you, Council President. This is where I miss Beth.
Yes.
So this is an ordinance to vacate a portion of the right-of-way of Ashwood Court. And folks will remember that there was for a period of time, there was an issue concerning the construction of Habitat for Humanity homes on the Italian-American Club lot. The result of that, there was some litigation. It was in the zoning board, came back through litigation, back to the zoning board, and now there's a settlement. And as part of that settlement, the city has decided to vacate a portion of this right-of-way in order to ensure that in the future there will not be a road. This actually, from my perspective, has been a win-win. We have been able to get the affordable housing units in place. We have been able to get the security and the concerns of the residents of Ashwood Court addressed. And so therefore, at the end of the day, all sides have walked away with having what they wanted as their primary goals achieved. And with that, I'd like to introduce this ordinance that we will have a hearing on the next council meeting on 6/14.
And I second that motion. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidoo?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, so now we're moving on to our second ordinance for introduction. It's a finance ordinance. Madam Clerk?
Yes. ID 7878, an ordinance to establish the 2021 salaries, wages, or compensations of and for the officers and employees of the City of Summit, County of Union, New Jersey.
Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This ordinance establishes the salaries, wages, and compensation for all employees of the City of Summit, that's union and non-union. This ordinance is introduced and passed once a year and goes hand in hand with the budget. We will have a hearing on this ordinance at our next council meeting, which is Monday, June 14th, and I move to introduce this ordinance.
Second.
Okay, okay, so I need a roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidoo?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So we're moving on now to resolutions. So first we have a few finance resolutions. Councilmember Vartan?
Yes, thank you, Council President. So number one is ID number 7903. This resolution sets forth the summary of 2021 revenues and appropriations for the 2021 municipal operating budget, sewer utility budget, and parking utility budget. At the last council meeting, we tabled this resolution. I explained the reason why was that we were waiting on a reviewer from the state of New Jersey to review and approve our budget. We now have a reviewer, but that reviewer cannot approve our budget until the state decides on its guidelines for how money in the American Rescue Plan can be applied to budgets. This is obviously very frustrating, but a problem that basically every municipality is facing together. So hopefully, any day now, the state will release the local finance notice, the reviewer will approve of our budget, and it is our sincere wish that we can vote to adopt this resolution at our next council meeting. So with that, I move to table this resolution again until our meeting June 14th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, so do we need a roll call for that, or do we just do a regular vote, Madam
I
Clerk?
would just opt for roll call just to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidoo?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes, motion carries. So moving on, Councilmember Vartan?
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7938. As a result of the last resolution, not being able to pass the budget, we need to once again pass resolutions to authorize emergency temporary funding for the budget. This resolution adds $649,000 to the temporary municipal operating budget. I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam
Oh,
President,
roll
I think
call.
we need
Sorry.
roll call.
Right.
All right.
Got
Ms.
distracted.
That's okay. Ms.
Okay.
Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. So moving on, finance number 3.
Yes, thank you, Council President. This is number 7939. This resolution adds $123,000 to the parking utility operating budget as an emergency temporary funding method. I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Okay, any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, last finance resolution.
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7940. This resolution adds $30,000 to the Uniform Construction Code operating budget. I move to adopt this resolution.
Second.
Okay, any comments from members of the public, or of council? Nope, members of the public? Okay, hearing none. One last roll call vote.
Okay. Ms. Allen?
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to law and labor. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to introduce Law and Labor Resolution Number 7900, which is to renew the liquor licenses for the establishments listed in the resolution for a period of 1 year beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2022. This covers retail distribution licenses, club licenses, and plenary retail consumption licenses. Additionally, these establishments must comply with city ordinance of proper storing and removal of trash and recycling collection. I look to move this resolution.
I second it. Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving on to safety and health. So, Councilmember Vartan, you're covering tonight?
Pinch hitting. Yes,
Yep.
thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7899. This resolution authorizes a grant application to the United States Department of Justice's Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program. This grant application is a matching grant that will hopefully help to offset the cost of bulletproof vest replacements for members of the Summit Police Department. The amount we're applying for is $2,190, which would require Summit match that amount for our purchase. Two things of note are that Millennium did complete the necessary paperwork for this grant application, and second, this will cover the cost for approximately 5 replacement vests. I move to adopt this resolution.
And I second it. Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving on to capital projects and community services. Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. The first capital projects is to authorize the execution of an agreement with Union County. This is in relationship to the Park Line project and putting up a pedestrian bridge across Morris Avenue. This is a kind of standard agreement that Union County needs to have in order to, because Morris Avenue, as you know, is a county road. Later on, we will be considering a bid with respect to the Parkline Pedestrian Bridge project. As folks will remember, the city entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Parkline Foundation a few years ago. This was after extensive public discussion on the project. And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce this resolution.
I second it. Are there any comments from members of council? Councilmember Allen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm excited to see this on the agenda. As a previous board member of the Park Line, I'm biased, and I believe this is pivotal in ensuring that this project ends up getting done, but it's also a great way to join East Summit and the downtown, and I feel like with walking and getting busier in New Jersey, this is a great opportunity to make it safer. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. I have a comment and I have a question. So the comment is, I think the Parkline Foundation has done a very good job of addressing the questions and concerns that we've had. largely the questions about safety, finances, and privacy. So I feel very good about this project moving forward, which brings me to my one question I have, and it's largely related to timing. So the bid and approval process for this project, for the bridge over Morris Avenue, lines up pretty closely with the beginning of the construction for the firehouse. So Broad Street and Morris Ave are pairs. So if there's going to be any traffic disruption due to either one of these projects, they're likely to affect each other. So we could also probably assume that Habitat for Humanity, as a result of the resolution or ordinance that we're going to pass at a meeting coming up, will likely start their construction project, which is literally next door to the park line as well. So I think we should be very mindful of adding lots of traffic disruption all at the same time, basically in the same area. So we can't necessarily control when Habitat begins their project, and it might not affect traffic too much anyway, but we can control when the firehouse and park line begin their projects. So to my mind, if they do line up, I think the firehouse should take precedence, and that the park line should be pushed off a bit to avoid traffic disruption. But overall, I'm in support of this ordinance, resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Are there any other comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? No? Okay. Any other comments from members of council? All right.
We
Okay.
should take a vote.
Let's take a vote, okay?
I just thought we were skipping that part.
No, we're not skipping that. I was just trying to think if there was anything additional that I had to say, but I think it's all been said. So just taking a minute to think. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, capital projects number 2.
Thank you, Council President. This is to authorize the execution of agreement dealing with snow and removal, really, for reimbursement from Wellington Place of Summit Condominium Association. This is a kind of a statutory requirement that we're required, statutory requirement that we are required to do. And it's for about $150 or so in cost.
Okay, you're moving it?
I'm moving it.
Okay, I second it. Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, go ahead, Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 3, capital projects, is as per our closed session discussion. It is to declare a vacancy for an engineering assistant. As we know from our prior discussions, Aaron Schrager has been elevated to our new permanent Director of Community Services. As a result of that, there is a slot open because everybody moved up a step, and so therefore there is a vacancy now in existence, and we ask that I introduce this to declare the vacancy.
And I second it. Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Oh, wait, did someone put a hand up? No? Okay. All right, so hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we've got one more capital projects.
Thank you, Council President.
Resolution.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, Council President. This is to create declare a vacancy in DPW for a part-time custodian. Again, as per our closed session discussion, our current person is actually moving to Florida. And so this is a part-time position, and I ask that we approve having this vacancy.
I second that. Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're moving on to the consent agenda. And generally, we consider the consent agenda as a whole and vote upon it as a whole, unless a member of council or a member of the public wants to pull anything out to discuss. So, Councilmember O'Sullivan?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Council President. Thank you, Council President. There is an item on the consent agenda that I wanted to point out, and that is ID number 7915, to fly the pride flag at the community center. Today is June 1st, and June is Pride Month, and I want everyone to know that at our community center, we'll be flying the pride flag, which represents hope, liberation, pride, and solidarity. Raising the pride flag is an important symbol of Summit's celebration of diversity and equity for all. On Saturday evening, Summit will hold its annual Pride event on the Village Green. The weather looks promising, and it will be a night of fun-filled activities and entertainment. I hope you can join us. And that's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan, and I believe the flag raising is tomorrow at
morning
11.
At 11 a.m.
Yep, and it's open to the public, I
Open to
believe.
the public,
Yep,
yes.
okay. So, Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan, for pulling out this important resolution.
Yeah.
I'll second it, if that's what we need.
Oh, did I actually ask for the motion?
I believe he motioned for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't hear that, so, okay. You'll second and then you'll comment. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I think raising the pride flag in Summit is important to do because it's literally a way to show people that Summit is a place that welcomes everyone, no matter who you love. So I also look forward to what I hope will be a very well-attended Pride event this Saturday. And while Summit is certainly doing its part as a city to welcome people, I encourage those who care about ending discrimination to contact our representatives in Congress to urge them to pass the Equality Act. This would help provide consistent anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people in housing, employment, education, and other areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Any other comments on this or any other matter? Okay, hearing none, we had a motion and a second, so all those in favor of the consent?
Oh, sorry.
Did I miss
I was going to jump the gun with you.
Okay, okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we're on to council members' comments and new business. Does anyone have anything they'd like? Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. 2 comments. So first, it was my honor to participate earlier with Mayor Radist in the opening ceremony of the Relay for Life of Berkeley Heights, New Providence, Mountainside, and Summit. I'm sure everyone in Summit has experienced the effects of the effects that cancer can have on individuals, their families, and on their communities. So therefore, it takes individuals, families, and communities to fight it. So I applaud everyone there who is walking this evening to raise awareness and to raise a significant amount of money to help create a world without cancer. The second thing is, also, Police Officer Raymond Peterson is retiring today. He served the city for 25 years. I thank him for his service and dedication and wish him the very best in his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to say? Councilmember Naidoo.
Thank you, Council President. There was a major infrastructure issue that that folks should be aware of, which was that the federal government, the Biden administration, approved moving forward with the Gateway Tunnel. That is very significant to the folks here in Summit. The Midtown Direct train is one of the key assets that keeps our property values up. And the fact of the matter is that the tunnels that amongst the people who commuted regularly was myself, would go through, and the lines of the New Jersey Transit were absolute disaster. And the fact of the matter is having the Portal Bridge being repaired and having the Gateway Tunnel on track to be built has immense implications for ensuring the financial security of this community long-term. So Biden administration gets commended, Congressman Malinowski, who I've talked to many, many times about this issue, and making sure he was absolutely dogged about pushing the administration, and even the past administration, to getting this done. And this is a huge, huge step, and it should not be missed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidoo. Any other comments from members of council?
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to say it's also PTSD Awareness Month, and in the spirit of Memorial Day yesterday, it was wonderful seeing hundreds. Sorry, Greg, I should turn my back to Councilman Vartan.
No worries.
I just want to say that yesterday was amazing being out and seeing so many people out there. So, just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah,
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. It was a great day yesterday.
No worries.
So with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next meeting is going to be Monday, the 14th of June. So we're changing the schedule because of graduations. So see you all then. Have a good evening. Stay safe, everyone.